Fred Anderson Toyota. Fred Anderson Toyota.
Hey, my name is John Langdon, Assistant Service Manager here at Fred Anderson Toyota in Raleigh, and I just want to take a few minutes of your time today and talk about the importance of a multi-point inspection. The multi-point inspection comes with all services here offered at Fred Anderson Toyota, and it's an insurance of your vehicle is covered in all areas. And just a few things to touch on with the multi-point inspection, because it covers your vehicle from bumper to bumper. We're going to talk about just a basic fluid check over here today. That is extremely important no matter how much you know about cars. Checking your fluids is vital. We're going to show you a couple major fluids to touch base on here, starting with the engine oil. Most all the time on these vehicles you will find the engine oil labeled with a yellow tip on the dipstick, but you want to pull this thing out and clean it off just to get a true reading. Make sure there's no residue left on the oil dipstick. Find the dipstick hole and insert the dipstick all the way down flush and pull back, and you will see a full mark on this dipstick. And as you can see, this oil is crystal clear, very clean, right where it needs to be, so it's very safe. Next on the list, we're going to look at the engine coolant, which is extremely important whether it's winter or summer. This is going to ensure your vehicle's temperature stays at exactly where it needs to be at an appropriate operating level. Checking the engine coolant is pretty cut and dry. What you can do is just look right here in the very front of the vehicle. You have your radiator, and 9 times out of 10 on all these Toyota models, the coolant reservoir jug is going to be located directly beside it. On this particular 4Runner, it's here to the right of the reservoir, and all you need to do to check this is just pop the cap off and just take a quick look inside just to assure the coolant is at least half full in the reservoir. Moving on now to the vehicle's power steering fluid. Power steering fluid is just as important as the engine oil. All these systems are driven by oil, and if they ever get low or even over full, it can cause some issues. So we're going to check the power steering fluid. Power steering fluid caps always will be labeled power steering fluid. So these manufacturers are making it pretty easy on the owners to know their vehicle inside and out. Here we have your power steering fluid reservoir to the left. It says power steering fluid right on top. Pretty hard to miss that one. So we're just going to spin this loose just like we did with the oil dipstick, and you always want to clean it first and get a good clear reading by making sure there's no residue on the dipstick. Once you're sure that your dipstick is clean, you want to insert it down in the reservoir and turn the cap until it locks. Loosen it back, pull straight up, and just like the engine oil dipstick, it has a full level mark, which will tell you your fluid is right where it needs to be. Moving on now to the engine air filter. Kind of just work around the engine in a horseshoe pattern. Start over here on the right and work your way back. This here on the left is your engine air box. Again, as the previous statement I made about the caps being marked, the air filter box is pretty cut and dry on getting into. There's 2 clips here. You just pull back, lift up the tab, and inside you will see your engine air filter element, which is vital to ensure your engine is able to breathe. When this filter here gets stopped up with dirt, pollen, and debris, it can cause the vehicle to have to work a lot harder just to breathe, which in result will really hurt your gas mileage. As you can see, this filter is pretty white. That's a good way to always tell. It's once the paper on it starts changing in color, it'll get a dark color, and you can always look up to the sun with it, and as long as you see light come through, you know that filter is still doing its job. And this filter's in good shape. We're going to insert this right back and continue on with our fluid level checks. Push down on the top and it snaps right back in. Windshield washer fluid. This is an accommodation. Some of the older vehicles never had it, but it's very important for those driving the interstates with bugs and just dirty areas. It ensures you're able to see clearly out of your windshield. And this is a pretty easy check, as just the coolant was. There's a top right on it, says windshield washer fluid. Can't miss that one either. You just pull out this little filter. It filters the washer fluid you pour in there to make sure you don't get any dirt and debris in your washer fluid reservoir. And just kind of poke your head down there and you can see the level of the windshield washer fluid. And this one was just topped off at the time of service, so it's still in good shape. You can run water in here, but it's recommended to run a mix. That way you never run the risk of, in the wintertime, having too much water in the solvent and causing it to freeze. So you can go to Toyota and we will always top your washer fluid off at every visit. On to the transmission fluid. Now, not all vehicles have a dipstick to check the transmission fluid. All automatics don't have them. Some of the manuals, you can't check the transmission fluid from the top side of your vehicle. This one here does have an automatic transmission fluid dipstick, so we can check this fluid level. You always want to make sure the vehicle's running when you check this fluid. Once you know that it is running, we would always keep it in park. While it's running, pull this dipstick tube out, and this is always going to be labeled red. As the engine oil dipstick is always yellow, the transmission dipstick has a red top. And like we did with the engine oil and the power steering fluid, you will pull your dipstick out and thoroughly clean it to make sure you get a true, accurate reading. Once you are sure it's clean, while the vehicle's running in park, place the dipstick back in the tube, feed it down to the dipstick tube till it goes all the way in, and just lift it straight back out. And you will see there are full marks on this transmission dipstick. This one's right at the top where it needs to be, in range, and this transmission fluid level is just fine. Once you've got your reading, you can put your dipstick back down in the tube and you will hear it lock into place, and you know you're in good shape. The next thing we're going to look at today is your drive belts. All these vehicles have rubber external drive belts, which runs all your pulleys, the fan, the alternator, air conditioner if equipped, power steering pump, etc. That's one of the things these technicians are going to check on your multi-point inspection. Just like tires, over time these belts wear flat and start to get cracks in them, which is something that can be prevented in the multi-point inspection by catching it beforehand when you just have a few small cracks, to where you're sure that belt won't break on you on the highway. So the serpentine belts are located right here in the front of the vehicle on this particular engine. Some other models, they are on the side depending on the engine. And some vehicles have more than one belt. This one actually has 3 belts. We did check all these out at service and they are in good shape. Moving on to the multi-point inspection checklist, we're going to do a walk around on the vehicle, starting with the passenger front. The technician's always going to pull your vehicle in, check your tires for the proper inflation level and also the tread depth. They are both vital. The tire pressure is going to ensure your tires wear evenly, and also you're getting your best gas mileage. And the tread depth, you never want to have any less than 3/30 seconds of tread. Once you get to 3/30 seconds, and we'll touch base on how to determine that, it's time to start shopping for some tires here at Fred Anderson. Checking tread depth is very important, and that's one thing the technicians are going to do every visit, is check, make sure you have plenty of tread on all 4 tires. What they will do is they have a tool called a tread depth measuring tool. They're going to stick that tool in the groove of these tires. There's several grooves of them, and they're going to measure each individual groove to make sure that tire is wearing evenly. If that tire is not wearing evenly, it could indicate an issue that needs to be addressed. And that's another important part of the multi-point inspection, is finding an uneven tread depth or potential problem and catching it while it's early. Now, whether it's just an alignment issue or it could just be a wheel balance issue, that can be corrected and still save the tires, because let's face it, rubber's not cheap. So they're always going to check your tread depth and your tire pressure, and they'll go through on all 4 of them and check out for you. The spare tire is very important as well. That's one thing folks forget about, is checking that spare tire. It's out of sight, out of mind. They never think of it until you're on the side of the road, sweating, beat red, trying to wrestle a tire off a vehicle. Once you finally get that spare tire installed on your vehicle, you want to be assured that it's got the proper inflation to get you where you need to be safe. Another thing we're going to check here on this multi-point inspection is your windshield wiper blades, making sure they clean the windshield properly. That's one thing at night in the rain that can be a really big headache, is to have windshield wipers that don't clean properly and streak and make it very difficult to see. So that's just one of the many things on these multi-point inspections they're going to check. All your major vital fluids for your vehicle, tire pressure, tire tread, check over all your belts. Make sure that battery's got a nice strong charge to it. Windshield wiper blades are cleaning properly. They also do a visual inspection on the bottom side of your car to detect any early fluid leaks, whether it's an engine oil pan, water pump. If you catch these things early and nip it in the bud, it can prevent you from having to have the vehicle towed in or inconvenienced on the side of the road. So every time when you come into Fred Anderson Toyota, the multi-point inspection is at your fingertips. Just let your advisor know, I would love to have the multi-point performed on my vehicle. That way you can prevent any failures down the road. Thank you for your time.